Welcome back. Welcome to the Premier Mindset by Premier Performance LLC. I'm your host, Trent Mailer, LCSW, licensed clinical therapist and performance coach, and this is episode 35. Most people think EMDR is only for trauma or therapy rooms, but that's not the whole picture. EMDR isn't just about the healing the past. It's about unlocking how your brain processes performance, emotion, and pressure in the present. The truth is, every high performer carries mental patterns that hold them back, moments they've never fully reprocessed, and EMDR gives your brains the tools to finally move through them. Those stuck moments show up everywhere. When you freeze before a big decision, when old failures start dictating your confidence, or when stress keeps hijacking your focus even though you know better. What's really happening isn't weakness, it's your brain protecting you with outdated wiring. EMDR helps you update that wiring so you can respond instead of react and perform at your true capacity. Today we're breaking down what EMDR actually is, why it works on a neurological level, and how it's being used by high performers to get unstuck, from athletes overcoming performance blocks to business leaders reprocessing stress and rebuilding clarity. You'll learn how EMDR helps your brain finish the stories it's been stuck in, and how that translates directly into confidence, focus, and composure. Quick note before we dive in, this podcast is for education and performance growth. It's not a replacement for therapy or medical treatment. If there are things you need, please go get them and get them taken care of. It's going to help in the long run. You can watch full episodes on YouTube and Spotify, and we also have the audio-only version on Apple Podcasts. I'll be sharing clips across Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, and other places as well, like YouTube. So hit subscribe or follow to catch every drop of new content. We have new things being posted every day with new podcast episodes coming out every week. All the links are in the show notes, so make sure to get involved and get into those communities. We'd love to have you. If you've ever felt like your mind knows what to do, but something inside keeps holding you back, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Let's talk first about what EMDR actually is. What EMDR stands for is eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. This is a structured, evidence-based psychotherapy approach that helps the brain reprocess distressing memories so they no longer have the same emotional intensity. It is based on the idea that the brain's natural healing process can become stuck or blocked following a traumatic event. This can lead to symptoms like anxiety, flashbacks, and distress. Unlike traditional talk therapy, EMDR does not require clients to provide a detailed account of the trauma. Instead, it uses bilateral, which is left to right, stimulation while a person holds a traumatic memory in their mind. This process is believed to help the brain reprocess the memory in a way that reduces its emotional charge. And we'll talk more about what bilateral stimulation and all these different aspects of EMDR are. I'm just doing a quick overview of it. There are 3 key theories on how EMDR works. The first one is adaptive information processing, or the AIP model. This theory suggests that EMDR helps unblock and access the brain's natural information processing system. By facilitating communication between the emotional and logical parts of the brain, EMDR helps move the memory from a raw, emotionally charged state to a more resolved and integrated one. The next theory is working memory theory. The bilateral stimulation is thought to place a cognitive load on your working memory. This reduces the vividness and emotional intensity of the traumatic memory, allowing it to be reprocessed in a less overwhelming way. And thirdly, we have the REM sleep hypothesis. The eye movements used in EMDR are believed to mimic the rapid eye movements that occur naturally during the REM stage of sleep, rapid eye movement, which is when the brain processes and consolidates memories. So we're kind of redoing that while we're awake. And the idea of that and where that comes from is how many people with trauma tend to have nightmares. If any of you have ever dealt with trauma, think of times in your past where you've been woken up in the middle of the night with some event or situation that you've been stuck thinking about or dreaming about over and over again. Our brain tries to process things in our sleep, and when it's not able to because it's too upsetting, it's too overwhelming, it wakes us up and stops the process, which is why you see the PTSD community have a lot of issues with sleep. So we're trying to recreate this while we're awake to reduce the intensity of it and help ourselves actually go through that process of integration. So let's dive into the history of it and how it was developed. EMDR was created by Francine Shapiro and evolved from trauma treatment into performance enhancement. Dr. Francine Shapiro developed eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, aka EMDR, in 1987 after a chance observation that moving her eyes from side to side seemed to reduce the intensity of her own distressing thoughts. After formalizing the technique as EMD, eye movement desensitization, she began using it to treat survivors of trauma, and it soon evolved from a trauma-focused therapy to an approach for enhancing performance. Going further into the development of EMDR. While walking in a park, Shapiro was contemplating some disturbing memories. She noticed that when her eyes moved back and forth rapidly, her negative emotions appeared to lessen. She kind of stumbled into this. Intrigued by this effect, Shapiro began testing the technique with clients, including trauma victims and Vietnam War veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. Her first paper, published in the Journal of Traumatic Stress, reported success using EMD to treat the effects of trauma, and that's where it all began. As Shapiro continued her research, she began expanding the treatment, introducing additional therapeutic elements, including positive belief statements. She renamed her methodology EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing as we know it, to reflect this broader process of cognitive change and healing. There was also expansion beyond the eye movements. Though the name focuses on eye movement, Shapiro's early development of the theory or therapy included other forms of bilateral stimulation such as hand tapping and auditory tones. This allowed for more flexibility in its application, and it's a huge part of it now as there's so many different ways to get that bilateral stimulation, which was first created with the eye movement, but really can be done in a lot of ways, whether that's tapping, like butterfly tapping, where we're tapping across our body, whether that be auditory sounds that kind of being back and forth, or a light bar where you see the light move back and forth. You can use buzzers where you feel vibrations going back and forth in your hand. There's so many different ways that it can happen. EMDR differs from traditional talk therapy in a couple ways because it's less about narrative and more about processing. It's nice because due to that fact that you don't have to go into every detail of the trauma, it can be a little more accessible for people to get into this type of therapy if they have issues talking about the struggles they have gone through, as you're able to work through some of these things without fully revealing what did occur. Us therapists on the other end do need to know certain aspects of things to be able to help regulate you and track where things are going and manage how it's going as well. So there are pieces we do need to know to keep you safe and help you through the process, because EMDR, while it's very powerful and effective, can also get people hurt if they don't know what they're doing too. So yes, you can keep more to yourself. It can be a little easier than just talking through things, but it may bring up some very difficult things as well. So we have to have some sort of communication to work that through together. One of the big things that is different is EMDR focuses on the brain's natural reprocessing mechanisms rather than relying on extensive verbal discussion to heal trauma. While talk therapy often aims for cognitive insight through narrative, EMDR uses bilateral stimulation to target and resolve specific distressing memories at a neurological level. Talk therapy is great. I do a lot of it. I just really like EMDR as well, so I do both. And part of that is because at times EMDR will work faster than talk therapy. There are times we need to do the talk therapy aspect. EMDR is a tool. It's not therapy all by itself. So we need to provide therapy. That's what we're doing. And there are going to be certain aspects we do need to talk through. Let's talk about the science of it all. Bilateral stimulation, such as eye movements, tapping, tones, and how it helps integrate memory networks. During EMDR, bilateral stimulation helps integrate memory networks and reduce the emotional charge of traumatic memories by activating and linking different areas of the brain. While the precise mechanisms are still being researched, several theories explain how this works. The process of memory integration. When a traumatic event occurs, the brain's information processing system can be overwhelmed, preventing the memory from being stored properly. Instead of becoming a past event, the unprocessed memory gets stuck in the emotional center of the brain, the limbic system, and it can be easily triggered by reminders of the trauma. Trauma triggers. The bilateral stimulation used in EMDR helps to unstick these unprocessed memories through several neurological mechanisms. One of those is dual attention stimulus. While focusing on the traumatic memory, the client simultaneously pays attention to the external rhythmic bilateral stimulation. This dual attention taxes the brain's limited working memory, making it harder to hold on to the memory with its original emotional intensity and vividness. Another aspect is memory reconsolidation. When a memory is recalled, it becomes temporarily unstable and vulnerable to change. The bilateral stimulation disrupts the memory's original distressing emotional encoding. When the memory is stored again, it is reconsolidated in a less emotionally intense, more adaptive form. This all relates back to the adaptive information processing, the AIP model we talked about. And it kind of acts as the foundation of EMDR theory and how it explains stuck or frozen responses. The AIP model is the theoretical foundation of EMDR therapy and explains how the brain naturally processes information and heals from distressing experiences. It provides a framework for understanding how unprocessed stuck memories can lead to ongoing psychological distress. The AIP model is built on the premise that the brain has an inherent physiological system for processing and integrating information, which it does. Think about how much trauma there has been for human beings throughout human history. There's been a lot of just violence and death and struggle and hardship. So we naturally have this system built in to help ourselves deal with these things. Otherwise, we would be traumatized to a point of complete shutdown on a daily basis. And there's a good chance the human species doesn't stay alive, doesn't exist to this point. Normally, when we experience something, our brain automatically processes and integrates that event into our existing memory networks. The useful parts are learned, and the negative emotions are neutralized, so that the memory is stored in a resolved state. This adaptive process is how we learn from our experiences and maintain our mental health. That's what adaptive processing is. On the other hand, with maladaptive processing, when a traumatic or highly stressful event occurs, the brain's processing system can be overwhelmed or disrupted. Intense stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline can prevent the information from being processed and stored adaptively. The memory remains frozen in its original, raw, and disturbing state, disconnected from the rest of the memory network. We also can have locked memories. These unprocessed memories are stored in a state-specific form, containing the original images, emotions, thoughts, and physical sensations from the time of the trauma. These things can literally just get stuck in the body. Because they are not properly integrated, they can be easily activated or triggered by internal or external cues, causing the person to feel like they're re-experiencing the event in the present. This explains symptoms like flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, and emotional overreactions. So think of some kind of trigger that you might have in your life, and how when it was triggered, it really truly felt like you were going back through a situation again. And this doesn't even have to be necessarily connected to trauma. There can be situations in your life where you handle it a certain way and it feels like you're going back in time. Maybe you're doing something from your childhood you used to always do and you haven't done for a long time, and then you do it again and it feels like you're going back through that childhood again. These things can get locked in our body. The AIP model provides a clear rationale for the dysfunctional responses often seen in individuals with unprocessed trauma. Past is present. When an unprocessed memory is triggered, the nervous system reacts as if the danger is happening right now in this moment, even if that memory is from years ago. This is why we can do things that we beat ourselves up about, because we're responding to ghosts from our past. For example, a person who experienced a car accident may have a panic attack every time they get in a car, because their brain is re-experiencing the original terror every single time. EMDR is actually really helpful for people with car accidents because they're usually pretty simple. They can be very complicated, but most car accidents are usually pretty simple, of just going through the sensations you felt and reintegrated back to just going back to life again. Negative self-beliefs. The unprocessed event leads to maladaptive conclusions that become core negative beliefs about oneself. For instance, a child who is repeatedly bullied may internalize the belief, "I am not good enough," which then influences their thoughts and behaviors in adulthood. We are a compilation of everything that we have been through. So when we go through very difficult things, our body remembers it and it stores this information, and it can change our future based on going through these things. This is also why we got to go into these things and dig this stuff out to get out of our own ways to find that success with what we're doing. And this is why EMDR is such a helpful thing with performance enhancement. Dysfunctional behavior. Behaviors that were adaptive during the traumatic event, like freezing, disassociating, or hypervigilance, can persist long after the threat has passed. The AIP model views these not as signs of weakness, but as a result of the brain that is still stuck in survival state. You see this a lot with war veterans coming back that may have PTSD, that they continue to have that hypervigilance that kept them alive while they were deployed, but while they're back home and they're safe, they can't turn it off. Because yes, this was helpful during the traumatic event, it was adaptive, but we're continuing to use it. And this happens so often where maybe we'll go through something when we're young and we learn behaviors to survive it or deal with it, and we just keep doing those things, even though the terror or the problem is a long, long time ago. Now let's talk about how trauma, either big or small, can get stuck in the nervous system. Trauma gets stuck in the nervous system when a distressing experience overwhelms the brain's natural ability to process and integrate it. Instead of being filed away as a resolved event, the memory remains fragmented and emotionally charged, keeping the body in a state of hypervigilance or shutdown. This happens through complex interplay between the brain's memory, emotion, and survival centers. Going deeper into the process of getting stuck. First, the alarm system takes over. This goes back to that threat system we talked about in that first episode. That's why I start there with the first episode, because it's the foundation we continue to build off of. So go back to that one if you haven't heard it yet, but we'll jump into it. During a traumatic event, the amygdala, which is the brain's alarm system, goes into overdrive, triggering an automatic fight, flight, or freeze response. Stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol flood the body to prepare it for survival. In this state of emergency, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for rational thought and memory integration, is inhibited. It literally goes offline. Because the logical part of the brain is essentially offline, the memory of the trauma is not processed as a coherent narrative. Instead, it is stored in fragmented implicit forms, such as sensory snapshots of sounds, smells, body sensations, and intense emotions. This is different from explicit memory, which recalls the context of an event, the who, what, when, and where. EMDR and the nervous system reset. We want to move from hyperarousal, that fight or flight, to hypoarousal, freeze or shutdown, back to regulation. EMDR helps to reset the nervous system by reprocessing traumatic memories that have caused it to become stuck in a state of hyperarousal or hypoarousal. By neutralizing the emotional charge of these past events, EMDR helps individuals expand their window of tolerance, helping them feel more regulated, grounded, and present, and they can handle more in their life. The window of tolerance is the idea that while we're in that window, we can handle things, we can regulate, we can get things done. Once we blow out that window of tolerance, now we're in that overreactive fight or flight or even shutdown mode. The connection between EMDR and neuroplasticity, which is how it helps the brain form new, healthier associations. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire and make new connections. EMDR is fundamentally connected to neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming these new neural connections. By leveraging this innate capacity for change, EMDR helps the brain unlearn maladaptive responses to trauma and rewire itself with healthier, more adaptive associations. Trauma has an impact on neuroplasticity as well. Normally during the brain uses neuroplasticity to integrate new experiences into existing memory networks. During a traumatic event, however, this process is disrupted. A traumatic memory containing the original images, emotions, and physical sensations can get stuck or frozen, in isolated, maladaptive neural networks. These networks are often heavily influenced by the overreactive amygdala, which is the brain's fear center. And this is how we can get frozen neural pathways, which is why we want to get them moving, we want to get them rewired. EMDR uses bilateral stimulation to reactivate and guide the brain's processing system, fostering neuroplastic change. Research shows that EMDR creates measurable changes in the brain function and structure. They've shown this. When a traumatic memory is recalled during an EMDR session, it becomes temporarily unstable and open to change. The bilateral stimulation acts as a catalyst for memory reconsolidation, disrupting the original emotional encoding and allowing for new information and perspectives to be integrated, which gets us to the D and the R aspect of EMDR: desensitization, desensitizing things that had happened, and reprocessing, which would be looking at it a little different, taking on a new perspective. As the brain reprocesses the memory, new synaptic connections form, strengthening helpful, healthier neural pathways. The once distressing memory is integrated into a broader, less threatening context. Over time, these new connections diminish the intensity of emotional triggers, and they're much easier to manage. Neuroimaging studies such as fMRI have observed how EMDR affects brain activity. One thing it shows is it reduces hyperactivity in the amygdala, which is that brain fear center. It also increases connectivity and activation in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation. It can also further help us by creating a new narrative. The therapy also helps replace negative beliefs associated with the trauma, such as "I am powerless," with more positive, adaptive ones, such as "I am in control now." The consistent pairing of the memory with this new, more positive insight reinforces the new neural pathway. EMDR can also help the brain shift from survival mode to processing mode. Bilateral stimulation helps shift the brain from that survival mode, which is driven by the amygdala, to the processing mode, which is governed by the prefrontal cortex, which gets shut down when we are totally overwhelmed. It does this by calming the nervous system and integrating the fragmented memories. Trauma and chronic stress can cause the nervous system to become dysregulated, leading to that persistent fight, flight, or freeze state. EMDR's reprocessing phases are designed to systematically address this dysregulation, and we're going to go deeper into those stages as we get closer. The neurological shift from survival to processing. First is quieting the emotional alarm system. The amygdala acts as the brain's alarm system, triggering fear and stress responses. In trauma, the amygdala becomes overactive, misinterpreting safe situations as threatening, keeping the body on high alert all of the time. Bilateral stimulation during EMDR, whether through eye movements, tapping, or tones, is known to suppress the activity of the amygdala, which helps us navigate it and reprocess and integrate it back into our body without that alarm system going off. As the amygdala calms down, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logical thinking, emotional regulation, and decision making, becomes more active. This allows an individual to access and reevaluate the traumatic memory from a place of safety and reason rather than being hijacked by a fear response. Finally, we want to integrate those memories into the hippocampus. The hippocampus plays a key role in consolidating memories and distinguishing past events from present experiences. During trauma, memories are often stored in a fragmented, raw, and emotional state. EMDR processing facilitates the integration of these memories in the hippocampus, helping the brain properly file them away as a past event and not something that is continuing to go on. There are some common misconceptions with EMDR that I want to go over really quick. EMDR is only for trauma survivors, which is not true. It's for anyone stuck in old patterns or memories. So if you feel like there are things you can't change or you feel stuck in any way, EMDR might be a really great way to get through that and kind of break through to a more success in your life. Another common misconception is that it's hypnosis, which it's not. You remain fully awake and in control. There are aspects of it that can look like hypnosis, such as, the eye movement aspect of tracking things back and forth. But what we're creating is bilateral stimulation. We are not hypnotizing you. It's a very different thing, and it's not the same thing. Another one is it's just moving your eyes back and forth, which on the surface, it kind of is. That's partly what we're doing. But what you're not seeing is all the work going on behind the scenes, which is why it feels so different than most other therapy. Because most other therapy, you're talking through what's happening in the moment, while this, you're letting the brain do the work in the background, as it's actually about reprocessing information networks. Another thought is that it erases memories, and it doesn't. It's not going to get rid of these thoughts or the memories altogether. What it's going to do is it's going to change how you feel about them, which is what we need. We don't want to forget our past. Our past is our past. It's already written in stone. We got to keep a hold of that. We got to understand where we came from. But we can change how reactive we are to the past and how it's interacting with our daily life now. Another thought that's pretty common is that it's weird or experimental. And EMDR is extensively researched and recommended by the APA, the VA, and WHO. And you can also go onto the National EMDR organization's website and look at thousands of pieces of research that have backed up the usefulness of this. The National Organization of EMDR is EMDRIA, EMDRIA, and it can be a pretty powerful tool to learn more about this if you are curious. But there is a lot of evidence. This is not some random thing we were just trying out. It's been proven and it's been around for a long time and it works. I also want to clarify that EMDR isn't spiritual or pseudoscientific or woo-woo. It's neurological. There are aspects of it that can feel like it is some of those things, but this is the brain process working that we are very aware of, and it's been researched extensively. Let's talk about the difference between remembering a trauma and reliving it. Remembering a trauma involves recalling a past event from a safe, detached perspective, while reliving it means re-experiencing the event with the same intensity as if it's happening in the present. The difference lies in the brain's ability to properly categorize and file away the memory, a process that is often disrupted by trauma. In a healthy integrated memory, your brain correctly stores the details of an event in the hippocampus, which is responsible for cataloging the who, what, when, and where. A memory that has been properly processed will have these characteristics. Contextual awareness. You understand the event happened in the past and you're not in any immediate danger. Emotional distance. While recalling the event may still evoke sadness or discomfort, you do not experience the same overwhelming fear or panic as at the time it occurred. Narrative coherence. You can describe the event as a linear story with a beginning, middle, and end, even if some of the details are unclear. And then safety and control. You can consciously choose to recall the memory and can just as easily choose to put it away. Now diving into flashbacks or reliving a trauma. A flashback is the key symptom of trauma and is a sensory, emotional, and physical replay of a past event. Instead of the memory being filed away, it remains stuck in the amygdala, the brain's fear center. When triggered by a sight, sound, smell, or sensation, the amygdala activates a threat response, causing the body and mind to react as if the danger is happening right now. One of the biggest, most impactful triggers is actually smell. So keep that in mind as well. A flashback is characterized by a loss of present moment awareness. You become disconnected from your current surroundings. Your brain loses track of whether it is in the past or the present, and for a period, the past completely overtakes the present. It's also involuntary and intrusive. Flashbacks are not something you can control. They interrupt your daily life without warning and are often accompanied by intense fear or panic. Sensory and physical re-experience. It feels as if the event is happening again. You may experience the same sights, sounds, smells, or physical sensations, such as a pounding heart, shortness of breath, or even pain. And emotional flooding. You are overwhelmed with the same intense emotions you felt during the trauma, such as terror, shame, or helplessness. EMDR therapy is designed to move the stuck memories from survival-focused amygdala to the rational prefrontal cortex in the organizational hippocampus. By doing so, it enables the brain to process the memory, transforming the experience from reliving to remembering. After successful treatment, a person can access the memory, acknowledging that the traumatic event occurred without being controlled by the overwhelming sensations and emotions. Now we're going to zoom out and talk about the 8 stages of EMDR. These are the stages that go into doing EMDR. And fair warning with all of this, EMDR is a very complicated technique. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot to be aware of. So while we're talking a lot about it, if you plan on using any of these techniques on your own, make sure that you are working with somebody who is trained to do it, or make sure you do the training yourself. This is not something I just read a book on and I'm doing. I went through trainings to do this and be able to provide this. So make sure you're doing it the right way so you guys don't get hurt. The first stage of EMDR is history taking and treatment planning. The therapist begins by getting a detailed history from the client and works with them to develop a treatment plan. This phase focuses on identifying the specific distressing events or memories that will be targeted during therapy, as well as the client's current symptoms and coping mechanisms. Phase 2 is preparation. The therapist and client prepare for the reprocessing work. The therapist explains the EMDR process and introduces skills for managing emotional distress, such as grounding techniques. This phrase is crucial for ensuring the client feels safe, comfortable, and stable before moving into the more intense reprocessing stages. We need to be able to manage the things that are going to come up. So we need to teach our clients what to do, and we've got to help people do that. We then get to phase 3, assessment. The therapist and client identify a specific memory to target and establish a baseline for its level of disturbance. This includes the target memory, the specific image or event being processed, the negative belief, which is the negative thought or belief associated with the memory, like I am powerless, the positive belief, which is the positive self-statement the client would rather believe, like I am in control now, the thing we want to install, subjective units of disturbance, SUD, which is a scale of 0 to 10 measuring the emotional distress associated with the memory. So if it's a 10, it's the most distressing thing you've ever thought of. If it's a 0, it's very easy. You can think about it all day long and it wouldn't impact you. And then the validity of cognition, the VOC, which is a scale of 1 to 7, measuring how true the positive belief feels. So we can track the change of the installation of the new positive belief to overtake the negative maladaptive beliefs. We then get to phase 4, which is desensitization. This is the core reprocessing phase where the client holds the target memory in mind while engaging in bilateral stimulation, such as following the therapist's hand movements with their eyes or any of these other bilateral stimulations that we have talked about. We do this and guide the client through the process through repeated sets of bilateral stimulation until the SUD score decreases significantly, often to 0. Sometimes it never gets to 0. So it does not have to get to 0 to be complete, but we want to reduce that level of distress so it feels better, it feels easier to manage. We then get to phase 5, which is installation. Once the memory is desensitized, the D of EMDR, this phase focuses on strengthening the positive belief identified in phase 3. Using bilateral stimulation, the therapist helps the client associate the positive cognition with the newly processed memory until it feels completely true and integrated, scoring a 6 or 7 on that validity of cognition scale of that 1 to 7. So we want to really install that belief and make it feel true. After that, we have phase 6, which is the body scan. The client and therapist check for any remaining physical tension or disturbance in the body. While holding the memory and positive belief in mind, the client scans their body from head to toe. If any lingering discomfort is detected, additional reprocessing is performed until a sense of calm is achieved. So you're kind of checking back in with the body, seeing if there's anything left to work on. Even if you've done a lot of work and you're not done yet, it can feel like all of it is done because you're feeling a significant decrease. This is a way to check back in and make sure we're not missing anything. And then phase 7 is closure. The session is brought to a close and the therapist helps the client return to a calm and stable state. If the targeted memory was not fully processed, the therapist provides containment techniques to ensure the client can manage any lingering distress between sessions. And this happens most often. It's very rare that we can fully process a situation in just one session. So there's most of the time something we're going to have to contain. It could be done in one session if it's just a very single, small, isolated event, but oftentimes it's connected to a lot of different things, so that we do have to keep things kind of contained until we can come back and do more work. And then phase 8, the final stage, is reevaluation. At the beginning of the next session, the therapist and client review the progress made on the previous target memory. This phase ensures the treatment effects are maintained and helps identify any new areas of distress that may need to be addressed in the current session. And the reason we do this in the next session is a lot of the reprocessing happens after we leave. So we have to give it time and see what's going to happen, and then we come back and talk about it then of where are things at, how is it working now. Now, diving out of trauma and going a little bit more into performance enhancement, because it is a very helpful tool for performance enhancement. It's not just for trauma recovery. EMDR is used for performance enhancement by reprocessing past negative experiences and beliefs that create mental blocks. This can be performance anxiety, can also lead to self-sabotage. By unsticking the brain's negative associations, EMDR helps individuals regain focus, build confidence, and enter a peak performance mindset. And that's what we're doing here at Premier Performance. We're helping you guys optimize performance, which is why this is one of my favorite tools to do so. EMDR facilitates performance enhancement through the same adaptive information processing model, the AIP model, that explains how EMDR heals trauma. It is just applied to negative, not traumatic, memories that hinder performance. A poor public speaking experience, a significant loss in a competition, or harsh coach's criticism can all create frozen memories that negatively impact future performance. EMDR helps in several key ways. It neutralizes past failures. Reprocessing a memory of a past failure can reduce its emotional intensity and prevent it from being a mental distraction. For example, a batter who strikes out in a big game might process that memory so it no longer causes them to overthink during a critical moment. It also reduces performance anxiety. EMDR targets the root cause of anxiety, such as fear of failure or judgment. By desensitizing the emotional charge of past experiences, this can help calm a racing heart, settle shaky hands, and quiet mental blocks before a big event. It can also help us install positive beliefs. A core component of EMDR is replacing those negative self-beliefs like I am not good enough with positive ones such as I'm prepared and capable. This strengthens a person's inner confidence and self-efficacy because we believe we can handle things, and this is how we get past these mental blocks in our mind that are holding us back from these high levels of success. It enhances focus and concentration. By clearing the mental clutter of worry, self-doubt, and other internal distractions, EMDR helps performers stay in the present moment. This improved focus is crucial for executing skills on demand. On top of all that, it also rewires the mind-body connection. For athletes and performers whose identity is expressed through movement, EMDR can address unresolved emotional and physical tension held in the body. This process reconnects the mind and body, promoting more authentic and fluid performance. If we go through trauma or if we go through difficult experiences, it is very common for that mind and body to disconnect, so reintegrating these things can lead to a lot of success. There are some examples of this in practice. One of them is Olympic gymnast Simone Biles. She had a public battle with the twisties, which has highlighted how a mental block can hinder elite performance. EMDR can address this kind of spatial disorientation by deprogramming the fear response tied to specific maneuvers. It is also used by rock climbers to overcome the fear of a fall, by skiers recovering from injury, and by runners managing mental fatigue, and more. They use this stuff more and more because it's been very beneficial and very helpful, and it works very quickly. It can also help professionals and executives. A history of bad job interviews, interpersonal issues at work, or a difficult layoff can lead to a lack of confidence and fear of taking risks. EMDR can help reprocess these events and install a new sense of purpose and resilience. Going deeper into this, athletes and professionals can carry mental scar tissue from past experiences, like we talked about with injury, failure, or rejection. These things can impact focus or confidence. They impact that confidence because these events are stored in the brain as unprocessed, emotionally charged memories. Unlike healthy memories that fade over time, These stuck experiences remain active in the nervous system and can be triggered by current situations, impacting focus and confidence. These are the things that we get stuck thinking about all the time. I'm sure plenty of you have things on your mind that just keep popping up whenever you're trying to deal with things, and they're just getting in your way. With that fear of failure, perfectionism, self doubt, or even choking under pressure, EMDR can help remove these performance blocks by reprocessing and desensitizing the past experiences that fuel these issues. By freeing the brain from the emotional baggage of these memories, EMDR allows the individuals to approach high pressure situations with greater clarity, focus, and confidence. EMDR is an effective tool for reprocessing past moments of failure and humiliation as well. This helps causing them to lose their emotional charge, reducing the power they have over the person's present and future. The therapy achieves this by helping the brain refile these distressing experiences from survival-focused limbic system to the calmer prefrontal cortex, where the memory can be stored without overwhelming emotion. It can be organized away into the hippocampus. Another example of this is performing artists. A pianist with stage fright, an actor with performance anxiety, or a creative with a fear of judgment can use EMDR to reprocess the memories and self-doubt that hold them back so they can operate at these highest levels. If we have fear of judgment or failure, you're not going to be able to operate at these high levels because things are going to go wrong and someone is going to judge you in some way at some point. I promise. When we're reaching these high levels of just success, when we're optimizing performance, and we're trying to be a high achieving individual, you get more and more eyes on you because you're doing more and more things at higher levels. So with that, we have to get these blocks gone. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time before you get in your own way and you start collapsing everything you built. EMDR also has a role in improving concentration, composure, and self-trust under high stress, which is why it's so helpful for high-achieving individuals. It does this by targeting and reprocessing past negative experiences that, again, create mental and emotional obstacles. This shifts that brain and that nervous system from the hypervigilant mode into the rational focused functions take over. Stressful past events, whether significant trauma or small t failures, can impair concentration by consuming the brain's working memory. EMDR clears this mental fog by reprocessing the memories, which allows performers and professionals to focus on the present moment and not be distracted by things in the past or the what-ifs in the future. I've actually done EMDR with people where they have come out of sessions saying they literally see the world more clearly, more clarity in just their vision, and that colors actually look more vibrant. So it can have a pretty big impact on our ability to focus and how we're looking at the world. Unresolved experiences like a past mistake during a presentation can resurface as a distracting, intrusive thought. Think of the times you've messed something up, and as you're doing something else, that thought comes into your mind, kind of warning you to look out for it. EMDR neutralizes the emotional charge of that, reducing the mental chatter that gets in the way of focus. By engaging the brain's natural processing mechanisms, EMDR helps update and integrate all these memories, freeing up cognitive resources for tasks at hand, which means we have more brain power we can use in the moment with whatever we're doing, again, improving our critical thinking, our decision making, and creativity under pressure. Desensitizing or deactivating emotional triggers is a huge aspect of this work, whether it be for performance enhancement or if it be for trauma. On top of that, we want to integrate all the resources so we have better, more adaptive ways of dealing with stresses and problems as they show up. For instance, a professional who used to freeze during a public speech can mentally rehearse handling the situation calmly so we can integrate that piece and have a better success in the future instead of getting stuck in freeze again. And on top of all of that, EMDR develops self-trust because self-trust is often eroded by past failures, criticisms, or rejection. By directly targeting and challenging these negative beliefs, we can install new, more positive beliefs, allowing ourselves to trust ourselves more and not be worried about these things happening again. Once we replace those negative beliefs, it gives us more power and control over how we're feeling and how we're handling things, which then further connects to intuition. For performers whose skills are intuitive, past trauma can disrupt the mind-body connection. You see this a lot with athletes. They have shown in some research that people can have issues with their own body control due to trauma in the past because that mind-body connection is almost severed, so the body isn't doing what the mind wants it to do. And reintegrating all these things can give us more control. We can be more athletic. We can do things better. There's thoughts out there that clumsiness might actually be connected with unprocessed trauma because your body isn't able to reintegrate these things and activate as a whole. It's activating as two separate parts. So if any of you out there are clumsy, give it some thought. There might be some reasons for that. There's always a why behind the things we're doing. This can also help with second guessing or overthinking in high stakes moments, which sometimes get in our way of doing what we need to do. On top of all that, it strengthens resilience. As old limiting beliefs are replaced with new adaptive ones, an individual builds psychological resilience. They learn to view setbacks as opportunities for growth rather than proof of inadequacy, fostering a stronger sense of self-worth that can endure future challenges. There's a lot of different examples of this. A couple examples I'll just throw out of EMDR being helpful in the past so you guys understand how it can work. First one is a pitcher with a game-losing home run. A pitcher who gave up a game-losing home run developed a mental block and performance anxiety. Using an EMDR protocol, the therapist and pitcher targeted the memory of that specific event. They created a narrative that reframed the failure. I'm usually a very good pitcher, but I didn't have my best fastball that day. And by reprocessing this small t trauma, the athlete was able to move past the humiliation and restore their confidence and get away from that performance anxiety. Another athlete example is a cyclist recovering from a crash. A cyclist who experienced a severe crash developed anxiety about taking sharp turns, holding themselves back, which led to issues with their performance, even after the physical injuries had healed. In EMDR therapy, they reprocessed the memory of the crash, releasing the trauma stored in the nervous system. This reduced the fear and restored the trust in the physical abilities, allowing them to return to the sport with renewed mental resilience. Diving into business, an executive with high stakes anxiety. An executive consistently underperformed during high pressure meetings due to anxiety linked to past failures. Through EMDR, the individual reprocessed memories of earlier career setbacks and negative feedback. By neutralizing the emotional charge of these events, they were able to approach new stressful situations with greater calm and composure, enhancing their decision making and leadership. Another example is a student with presentation anxiety. A college student with severe presentation anxiety received EMDR therapy, and after just 3 sessions, their anxiety scores dropped from the 98th percentile to the 55th percentile. An expert panel who viewed before and after tapes noted pronounced improvement in their presentation skills. The student later landed a management job and reported successfully giving presentations without intense anxiety. So we can overcome things, and this stuff can work very quickly. Again, EMDR is a chainsaw. You can get a lot of work done very quickly, but if you don't know what you're doing, people can get hurt. So we got to get trained. We got to know what we're doing. We got to do it with people that have been trained on this. And there's a whole lot of other ways that this stuff can impact us in positive ways. We could talk about it for hours of different kinds of evidence and examples of people finding success by using EMDR, which is again why our practice here at Premier Performance is so wrapped around EMDR, because it's such a beneficial tool, and it's a tool not everyone can use because of the rigor and the training that goes into doing it. There's an overlap between EMDR and visualization I want to touch on. They both use mental imagery, but EMDR rewires the emotional response to those images. So while some of it is kind of the same, it is separate at the same time. We can combine EMDR and visualization for peak performance, and that's why we've talked about visualization in the past. For peak performance, EMDR and visualization can be used together as complementary tools, often as part of a specialized performance enhancement protocol. Again, why we do tailored systems here at Premier Performance to wrap it around you and your specific situation to maximize or optimize what you have going on. My goal is not to fit you guys into cookie cutter structures that you got to make yourself fit into. It's to wrap it around you so it gives you the best improvement, the most impactful success from using these techniques and doing this work. First, we may use EMDR to target and reprocess any past negative events, such as failures, injuries, or rejections that are acting as mental blocks. This neutralizes that mental scar tissue we're talking about, so it no longer hinders focus or triggers anxiety. And then we want to build future performance with visualization. So once the emotional block is gone, we can help the client build a future template using bilateral stimulation. The client visualizes a future situation, like an upcoming game or presentation, and imagines themselves performing with the desired focus, composure, and confidence. This reinforces the positive state and prepares them for the specific challenge ahead. If you are interested in the visualization aspect, we talked about this on episode 24. If you want to go back to that, give it a listen as we go really in depth about that for about an hour if you want to learn a whole lot more about how visualization can help us find success. It is a great tool and it can be combined with a lot of cool things. So, a quick summary of real-world applications of EMDR. For athletes, it could be used on past losses, injuries, or failures as learning rather than trauma. For executives, you could break through chronic stress patterns or imposter syndrome. For first responders, military, or high-risk professionals, you can work through the trauma of what you're seeing, what you're going through, and the stress that you're feeling. For relational repair, it can reduce emotional reactivity and communication, help us deal with things better, get through things together, that be more teamwork-based. It can help with performance anxiety, with public speaking, test taking, performing under scrutiny. And it can help with burnout recovery, addressing emotional weight behind the overworking. So there's a lot of different ways we can use this. It can be helpful in a lot of different contexts and situations. Let's explore how it can help you guys. So a couple questions before we get out of here I want you guys to think about and reflect on. Make sure to send me your answers so I can keep tracking where these things are at and I can help you guys out with it. First question, what have you been stuck on and not able to leave in the past? What is something that is continuing to live on with you? What ghost are you holding on to? Write that down for yourself, reflect on it. Second question, what issues would you like to be free from? What chains are you carrying? What would you like to get away from? Even if you don't know what's causing it or why it's there, what would you like to be free from? Third question, what beliefs are keeping you stuck currently? What beliefs are you holding on to that are limiting your success and holding you back in your life? We're trying to help you guys be as successful as possible. In order to do that, we have to see what is getting in the way. So write all those things down, reflect on it, send me your answers, let me know what you're thinking. And I can even give you guys some tools today to get started on and start working on these things now. Resilient minds, premier results. This is what we're building here at Premier Performance. This is what we're trying to create through the Premier Mindset so that you guys have the mindset and all the information needed to be successful. And then we can do the work together to set ourselves up and get these things going. Recognition is the first step. If we don't know something's happening, it's really hard to do anything about it. So we got to try our best to recognize what is going on, what is happening. That's why we do so much reflection, to help you guys see what's going wrong so we can change it, so we can fix it. Make sure to share this episode. If you think anyone could benefit from it, if there's anyone that any of this information sounds like it kind of is talking about, like you know people that are getting stuck on things or aren't able to get past things, share this with them, let them know about it. I found there's a lot of people that just don't know what EMDR is. They haven't even heard of it before. In all honesty, I never heard about it until I got into graduate school where I learned about it there. So share this information. Let's see how it could be helpful for people and see if someone can get started on this work themselves. They might find a lot of success with it. If you found success from it in any way, make sure to leave us a review. These reviews are really helpful for us. They help us expand our reach, get to more people, which is our goal. We're trying to spread awareness. More people can do these things. And that feedback is always helpful for us to make it as helpful as we can for you guys. That's the goal. But to know what's going to work best for you, I have to actually hear from you guys. So let me know what's going on. Leave us reviews. We love hearing these things. Even if you don't want to do it publicly, you can send me a message. I'd love to hear from you guys and how things are working. Because at the end of the day, I make it a point to give you actionable tools to find success in your life. And I want to know if it's working. I want to know if it's helping. I love staying connected with you guys. I love hearing about the successes, the failures, the struggles, everything in between. And I know the path towards success is filled with a lot of bumps, a lot of hurdles, and a lot of times things go wrong. And it's a long, grinding path. So don't do it all by yourself. Let me be connected with you guys. I want to be a resource to help. And if there's anything you need, make sure to reach out. There's a lot of ways to do that. You can reach out through email. My email is tmailer@premierperformancereno.com. My last name spelled Mahler. You can text or call me directly at 775-561-0056. If you want to get something set up, just reach out. We can talk. We can do a free consultation. I have a Calendly link on Instagram that you guys can jump into and get things set up now. I do free consultations just to start, see if we can work together, see if it's a better fit for you to do things elsewhere. I don't want to take your time and make you do things that's not going to help you. I'm going to get you set up with what's going to work best, even if that's not with me. We also have our Instagram and TikTok with the same name for both of those. That name is premier_performance_Reno. Make sure to jump in there. We have the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page, which is both the same name as well. Premier Performance LLC for both of those. And then the Twitter or the X name, which is @Premier Reno LLC. And then our website, which is www.premierperformancereno.com. We are building communities in all these social media sites. We have all our information on our website, so make sure to check that out. But make sure to get involved in these communities because we want to connect other high-achieving individuals with each other. That's part of what we're building here, is a network for each other too. So get involved, get into these communities, catch the information that's coming out as we drop content every day, so you guys have plenty of things you can work on. And if there are things that I can do to help you along with this process, just let me know. Feel free to reach out. We're going to keep going with all this next week. Next week, we're talking about the cost of control, how it gets in the way, what it does to us, and how it can destroy things in our life. So we'll dive deeper into that, really explore it, and see how helpful that might be for you. Outside of that, I want you guys to go have a great week. Go enjoy yourself. Go have some fun. Just don't get just focused on building through struggle. Sometimes we just need to enjoy ourselves too. If there's anything I can do to help in the meantime, just say the word. Otherwise, do the best you can. Be that best version of you that you can be. Push yourself towards that success. The path towards the success is never easy. And I will see you guys soon.